Hey guys, how y'all doing? My name is Kieran and this is Fox Off RPG. So today we're going to be going over how to solo play adventures. We're also going to talk about how to generate rooms, and also how do you play with just plain dungeon maps with nothing in it. Those last two are going to be very similar in terms of how things are populated and done. There's different ways of doing these things as well. I'm going to talk about them, as well as talk about some of the stuff we'll be looking at here. We have some basic dice here. I have some other books to look at. We have Augury dice here, and of course, like your simple d6s, two of them together can also work as an augury, or even 1d6, depending on what tool or way of discerning things are going to work for you. We're also going to talk about how do you decide what area you're going to walk into, how your characters are going to move. Because if you come to a room, there's two ways to go. Which way do you go? If there's 5 ways to go, which way do you go? So we're going to do all that. It'll be very simple, very straightforward, with a few cards to look at. So before we get into the video, I just want to again thank you everyone. When you like, comment, subscribe, it helps out the channel massively. And if you do want to talk to us more, you can jump on the Discord. I'll be there every now and then, not all the time, but I try to be on there a little more. If you want to join, links down below. I also have my drive-thru affiliate link. If you ever want to get into a drive-thru, consider using it. It doesn't cost you anything and it helps out the channel a little bit. And also that my link works with drive-thrus, comics, fiction, cards, all that stuff. So that's it. So let's get into the video. First things first, we're going to move our dice. I think these are pretty cool dice, by the way. So we're going to open up on the first dungeon page. Now this is the Sinister Stone of Sakkara. This is AX1, created for ACKS. But of course, it'll work with any OSR type game, any old school game. It doesn't really matter. A lot of these fantasy things work together fairly easy with minimum to no changes. The changes will come in small ways, which I'll talk about now in a little bit. So how do we go about playing in a dungeon? So here we're going to look at we're going to enter. We say we got here, and then we entered the dungeon. Since that's all this video is about, how to solo play adventures and dungeons, stuff like that. So we get into the room, to the burial temple here. We get into the first room, and it talks about the kobolds here. It's got an area controlled by kobolds. The other bigger, more powerful monsters are happy to allow the kobolds to be the first creatures that the parties will find. Because they're small, they're weak, they're expendable, they don't really care. But the kobolds do want to make a good impression on the ruler of this place. So normally the kobolds are going to be a little more cowardice, but maybe this time they're not going to be. Maybe they might help our party, but then betray them. We don't know. It talks about all in here. It talks about the first room. We're going to come into it. It's 130 feet wide. It's 30 feet tall. When it's all cracked open, so during the day, the daylight will stream in, illuminating the first room everywhere. So when it comes to encounters, it's going to be very simple, straightforward. You're going to roll for surprise or not surprise, and then you can figure out what you want to do. That's usually what I do. Maybe we walk in, the kobolds are turn around, we have surprise on them, and our party can decide they're just going to attack them straight away because these are kobolds. These are vicious little creatures who will rip apart like sheep and baby alike. That's going to be up to you. Or maybe we get surprised by them and they get a jump of us, or maybe they don't. Maybe you want to do a reaction roll on how their demeanor is going to be, and there's different ways of doing that. Now this is going to be very system dependent. If you just want to play if you're playing with ACKS, it has its own system on how things are going to run. But let's just say I have another book here. I'm just going to take this out for 1 second. So we have monster reactions. So how are monster reactions going to work? So in this game, this is Barrows and Borderlands, by the way. So I'm just going to use this as an example. Okay. So monster reactions. Outside of combat, pursuit of intelligent monsters can act unpredictable. So how will these are kobolds? They are intelligent. They're not the smartest, but they do have independent thought. They're not zombies. They're not a wild animal. Wild animals are usually just going to attack or not. But these guys, they might have a different approach to the party. So we have 3 possible answers with this simple augury to find out a reaction. Other games might have just a 1d6 or then 2d6, with more options. Of course, you can mix and match anything you want. So we're just going to roll 2d6, see what we get. Roll it here. So we have a 3. So on a 3, they're hostile and combative. combative. So straight away they're just going to attack. So if they surprise us, we're just going to have to do basically defend being attacked. And that's how that goes. That's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now, the difference you might find is different games are going to behave differently with their monsters. So example here, don't mind the AC here, it says AC2, but in ACKS how AC works is 0 AC means you're literally wearing nothing or there's like cloth. AC1 would be equivalent to like leather, AC2 might be leather and a shield, or like studded leather or something like that. So anyway, so here it has 1d4 for hit dice, and just give them 4 hit points. Okay. Has 4, 3, 3, and 2. Now, again, this is going to be different on each system. So if you want, you can just play with that straight out of the box. Doesn't really matter. Okay, but for example, in this game, Barrows and Borderlands, most of these creatures are going to be D8 hit dice. So this is where the differences in games might work. You could also have them as D6 if you want them to be a little weaker, to show that they are more minions. You roll your D6 and play with that, or just give them all 6 straight out of the box, or give them the average. I think it's better to roll with some of this stuff sometimes, so it's not super easy. But again, if you just want to play the adventure straight, play with this. Okay. Again, I'm just going to be pausing here and then to bring up some of these points. So let's say we have our combat here. We defeat the creature. How do you go about combat? It's the same way you do in whatever system you're playing. That does not change. Simple and straightforward, guys. So now we've only really one way to go. We're going to assume we've explored this area. Maybe we've mapped it out. Maybe we had to roll a dice to see if we got a wandering monster if we took too long. One of the ways we're going to figure that out as well is what I like to use in most of my games is a dungeon tracker. This is the one from Old School Essentials, and it works really well. So you have your torch and your lantern sort of stuff, expiries, your wandering monster checks. Now, if you don't like that one, use a different one. It doesn't matter. So we're going to do a wandering monster check. So on a 5 or 6, we will have a wandering monster attack. We roll a 1, no wandering monster. Okay, we come up into the first area. It's going to be a massive hallway. We go left or right. So how did we decide what way we're going to go? Well, again, we can either use D6 or any other dice, really, because it's just about percentages. We could use a D6, a D4, a D8, 2D12. It doesn't matter. We're just going to use a D6, for example. So 1, 2, 3, we're going to go left. 4, 5, 6, we're going to go right. We go left. So then as we're walking along, again, we kind of have to assume some things when we're moving through a dungeon. What I will do is, if I have a thief, I will say they are constantly checking for traps. Then they're going to roll their dice every now and then. Anytime a trap does show up, see if they find it. If they don't find it, there's a chance the trap will go off. I think that's a fair thing to do. Now, when it comes to like secret doors or secret rooms, that's where it gets a little trickier. So let's say that we're in a room that does have a secret door or a secret area. How do we determine if we should check for it or not? And there's 2 simple ways. We can just say we're always checking, but then that's going to spend us more time in here. It brings up more wandering monsters. There's another way, which I like, and it's different Augury dices. And I'm going to give an example of one here. So we have the Tales of Argoza Augury dices. I think I've showed these off a few times before. So we have these sort of rune symbols on them. We have a yes. We have a no. We have 2 of these white ones. We then have what we call, I think it's the ruler dice. This will overturn certain things. So I'll show what that means in a minute. We then have a negative symbol, a positive symbol, and nothing. And then we have a reaction dice, which is going to show a reaction to the things that are in the room. We do not need this one for we're checking for traps. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, is there a trap in this room? And how this is going to work is, say we got a no and a yes, okay? But then this one has a Y in it. This one will knock out one of the dices. This will be used as a ruler. But if we had a no on this one, it would knock out the yes. So we would have a yes. That's pretty much how this works. It's very simple, straightforward. So we're going to say, do we find a secret door or trap when we're searching? And we have a no, we do not find anything. That's it. Super simple. Okay. We'll ask it again, see if we get a yes. No, again. So we definitely do not. I'm not saying you do that twice, but I'm just saying as an example. But now we could do the same thing with the symbol. We could say, do we find a trap? And if we do we deactivate it? So what we're going to do is going to roll again. We have a yes. So this knocks out one yes. We have a yes. So we find a trap. Does it go off? We're going to ask, does it go off when we find it? So we might accidentally touch it. We're going to say, no, it doesn't go off, but there's a negative consequence. What could that negative consequence be? That could be maybe it took too long and we now have a wandering monster check. Okay, we're going to roll on a 2. No, we don't have a wandering monster check. There we go. Simple and straightforward. Again, all this stuff is very simple for the most part. So, now we've come into room 2, into the hallway. We're going to turn, we said we're going to turn left, we turn left. And as we come around, we're going to see there's a marking called B and then A. So we're going to read B and see what it says. So we're going to enter this great hallway. It talks about how wide it is. The formation of the area, the archway, the kobolds, area 1, brigands in area 2, and orcs in area 3. So we're still not really anywhere. So we have area 2. We might have an encounter, so we'll see what happens here. We're looking for B. So we have B. So the second fresco. A fresco of 3 slender, dark-haired, brown-skinned kings with accoutrements of a warrior, a mage, and a priest. The 3 figures are sorcerer kings of Sahar. Yuguza, conqueror of Chahilza, Jakahar, creator of the Beastmen, and Munchai, the dead priest, who ruled at the apex of Sahandrian power. So we come across that. Now we have to figure out if we want to decide to spend some time to decide, do any of our characters know any of this stuff? How do we do that? Well, I think it's a very, very simple matter. This is the way I will usually do this. Again, we can simply just roll the dice like we have. We have an Augury dice here. There's other Augury dices you can use, which is going to be a 1d6 or 2d6. Yes, no, yes, but, yes, no, or no, but, that sort of stuff. The way I like to do it is I will look at my individual characters. Who is more likely to know about this sort of stuff? About history. Maybe your character might have skills in history, depending on the game system you're running. So what I do is I look at a character class. Let's say we have a highly intelligent wizard. Okay, maybe this wizard is probably going to know more about history because they are wizards. They're always looking back in time for different spells, and they're going to learn about different events because it's going to be quite important to them. Okay, so we have a wizard. He's highly intelligent. We always have a baseline of 1. Okay. And is it anything related to their religion? No, I don't think so. Would they know something based on some of the religious things that are mentioned in here? Well, just talk about a death priest. So perhaps he knows something about the death priests. We just sort of find out what religion they're related to. And we're going to say for this purposes, yes. So all these points build up. So we have a 4 and 6 chance. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of understanding who or what this depicts, and not just a bunch of random pictures on a wall. Okay. 5, no, our wizard does not know who it is or what it is. So then we move on, and then as we move down again, we're going to see A. A is going to show up, and A is a cracked and broken fresco of human slaves led by a lean brown-skinned man with a long dark head, with a very long head, rising up against the lizardmen masters. The fresco depicts the Zaharian rebels against the Dazarians, 1060 BE. I said BC. Predominantly depicted is Augury, the conqueror, for the first sorcerer king, and the start of mankind's tyrannical reign. He was considered a liberator of mankind. Now we're going to have our party. We're just going to say our party is mostly humans. We have 1 dwarf and 1 elf. Pretty much all the men will probably know something about who this character is. It's just part of the history and it's being taught and understood, probably from in their cities and stuff like that. So that's how you determine that. Also, you determine based upon the adventure you're playing. Now, if you're just plugging something into your whatever system, you can decide what that is, if it's part of the past, or, you know, whatever the case might be. You might change the names to make it suit the setting or whatever you're playing in. That's those left on your side. That's fine. But we're just playing it straight, for example. We're going to say that, yes, all the men are going to know who this figure is. He was the leader and the liberator of all mankind, at least in this part of the world. So that's how we figure out how our characters know things. It's very simple. It's like stuff that's super common. Pretty much everyone's going to know. Now, say we had a bunch of dwarfs, only dwarfs or elves. Now we have to decide, would they know anything about it? So let's say we have elves, for example. Or elves, how old are they? Are they 50 years old or are they 1,000 years old? We're going to determine their age. Then we're going to determine their intelligence or wisdom. And again, their class is going to have an effect on this. Now, if you are a priest or a wizard, we generally like to say that you will probably know more about these things because of your studies. You're referencing history books, religious books, and these things might have things mentioned. Or maybe you were there at the time. So let's say, for example, there's a 3 in 6 chance that the elves will know something about who this figure is. 4, no they don't. Our party is not very intelligent, or don't know anything about the past. But that is basically how it's going to go. Then we're going to come down to an intersecting point here. We can either go left or take the door. How do we decide? Again, 1, 2, 3, we're going to go left. 4, 5, 6, we're going to try and take the door. We're going to try and take the door, and that's how it's going to go. Now, let's say we're playing this for a while and we got up to area 20, okay? We came through door 19, we got into area 20. So we're here and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 doors. Well, that is a great number for us, guys, because we can decide either we're going to take the very first door, because of a common sense approach, or our party is going to decide by D4 or a D8 or even a D12, you know? If you have one, because most people do. But obviously we're going to roll D4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see what we get. We roll a 3. We instantaneously go to this door. And then that's how we're going to do things. We're going to do our checks as we go along. And that is the most simple and basic way you can play any dungeon adventure at all. Again, we're going to have a sheet which is going to help us with wandering monsters, the reminders. Again, if you're doing a system where they do wandering monsters every after so many feet or after so long spent, do that. If you don't want to use this, don't use this. Use something that works with your system the best. Again, this is a very simple, straightforward way of doing things that I like. Now, let's say we're playing in a dungeon where there's nothing populated. It's just a sheet page that we took from online or some adventure somewhere else, which doesn't have any information attached to it. How can we populate the dungeon? Well, there's a couple of ways. There's a lot of books out there will have dungeon generation rules, and they also have rules for populating areas of dungeons. You can just take one of these out. For example, let me grab one here. Here we go. So this also have solo dungeon generation charts, but we're not going to look at that just yet. So we're going to be looking at the following tables here. Again, this is Barrows and Borderlands stuff. This is regular Boogaloo, but this is also found in the core book, in the adventure book, I think. Book 4. So we'll say we're on ground level 1. Okay. Well, we're going to roll a d12. Let's see what kind of monsters are going to be in the room. Or in this dungeon, for example. This can be decided before we come into it. We can decide the Wandering Monster tables. We can create one from getting stuff from in the book. Or we can compile stuff together from here. Say we want to make a Wandering Monster table. We'll just roll 6 times on this. 8. We have cavemen. That's once, twice. We have 9. That's a rival party. So we have 2 possible modern monster encounters. 3, we have skeletons. 6, we have giant spiders. 3, we have skeletons again. So what we could either do with that is we can say there's going to be double the amount of skeletons potentially. So instead of 1d6, there's going to be 2d6, or we could roll again. We have 12, which is a result from level 2. And number 8 on level 2 is giant ants. That's 3 to 10. Let's say that's our wandering monster table. There we go. We're going to enter a room. We're going to do all that stuff. But how do we populate the rest of the room? Again, we can just roll on this. 10. There is velociraptors. Or what we can do is we can look at the theme that we're trying to get, which can be done in several ways. And one of the ways I like to do that is with cards. Now, this is the deck of signs for Tales of Argoza, much like these dice were for Tales of Argoza. Now, I've already shuffled some of this stuff previously, like I always do. But we're going to roll out 3 cards. Normally, you're going to roll 2. Okay. So we have the cards here. And how these work is you're generally going to have a direction, a symbol in the corner or the bottom, which is going to depict if it's night, morning, dusk, or dawn. And then you have a bunch of keywords, which are going to help you determine what an adventure could be, a quest could be, or even what's going to be populating in a dungeon, or what the theme of the dungeon is. So maybe we were told about this one-page dungeon we talked about. A seer told us there is some sort of plague that's infecting things, and it's causing people to become crazy. And like, there's something here. It's infecting people, it's affecting their minds, causing them to go crazy, and basically become vicious. So how we can go about this is maybe this symbol here, this picture, it's off some sort of death knight. So maybe somewhere in the dungeon, whoever's controlling or causing this is an undead creature of some sort. They could be a death knight, they could be high level mummy or skeletons, they could be a necromancer, something like that. So they're causing some sort of plague or infection that's spreading through, causing mind warping on the populace of the nearby locals. They're becoming violent. So maybe, okay, so we know the dungeon is an undead type dungeon. It's going to have plagues and other stuff in there. So maybe some of the traps are going to be gas traps. They might knock us unconscious. They might be poisonous gases. Stuff like that. So we now know the theme of our dungeon. The theme of the dungeon is undead. There's some sort of plague or something in here that's damaging. It's going to cause poison, cause you to become unconscious in the trap section. And then you combine all this stuff together and you're going to have, you have your wandering monster table. Maybe some of these monsters in here have been driven crazy and more violent than usual from all this stuff in here. Maybe they're fighting each other as well. Maybe the rival party, they weren't necessarily a rival party, but maybe a previous adventuring party that came in here to try and sort it out, but they've been infected by the disease. See how we're building things? We have a blank dungeon. We have now generated wandering monster tables to combine them with the cards, which are going to inform how everything is going to work. Very simple. Now, if you want to since we know this, if you want, you can get your monster book and you can specifically add certain things in that you think would fit within this theme. Or you can just use these sort of tables, again, whatever book you have. It's going to be up to you guys how you go about that. So you need to be objective when you're solo playing. You need to be saying when you're dungeon crawling or you're trying to generate or populate things. Don't think of it as I'm trying to do this cool thing. Think about it as how would I play this with other people? Would I go easy on them or not? Well, generally, no. You're just going to populate things as they should be populated. And that's how you have to go about that. Now, with solo dungeon generation stuff, again, this is Barrows and Borderlands, Radioactive Boogaloo. This is free if you want to get. You have your solo generation chart. You're going to come in, you're going to look at table 5, I think it is. You're going to roll the dice to figure out what kind of door shape it is, or room shape it is. You can use the book stuff from AD&D. If you have other cards you want to use for generation rooms, tables as well. I've shown off some of them before. I have that video linked in the top right if you want to check it out. But these are all things you can do. AD&D is a great example of this as well. This is a pretty damn good example, and I have it right in front of me all the time. So this is one I use whenever I do solo generation stuff. It works out quite well, and then I populate things as I go along. So we go into the room, we figure out what size it is, we find out how many exits or doors there are, and it gives you examples all here, and it works out really well. Again, I think if you want this, it's free to download. So it's like there's tons of sort of solo generation tables and books out there that help you with this stuff, and then you're going to populate the same way we talked about previously. We can use the same tables here. We can then decide some of the stuff that might be populating it or be the wandering monsters. I do like to use this for populating wandering monsters. Then try and figure out the theme and the idea of the dungeon we're in. This could be done by a quest generator, like we did talk about this with the cards here. These do work as quest generations and population generators. It works out really well for all of these things. Combine all this stuff together, and then you have a very simple and straightforward way how to solo generate and play in unpopulated dungeons. Of course, you want to take into account things like what area location you're in. Are you in the mountains? Are you in the plains? Are you in a dungeon that's half baked, half underwater? Obviously, those things are going to affect things as well. But when we talk about Augury stuff as well, there's one more Augury table in here. I meant to bring this up earlier. And here you go. This is going to be a D6 Augury. So the Augury table is a D6. We're going to ask a question. We're going to say, is there a secret door in this room? Let's just roll and find out. So it has the first one is no, and the answer is no, and there is a negative twist. 2, there's no. It's just a simple no. 3 is no, but the answer is a no, but with a positive twist. 4, yes, but the answer would be with a negative twist. Yes is just yes, and yes, and the answer is yes with a positive twist. So is there a secret door here in this room? We got a 4. That's a yes, but. So the yes is there's a secret door. Now the but could be maybe the door is jammed. It requires a high strength check. Maybe we could decide it requires an item to open it. And this works really well when you're in a dungeon which is you're generating or is blank, in my opinion. Maybe it's a key that needs to be placed. Maybe a monster or boss or mini boss has that item. Maybe it's magically sealed in some way. Or maybe we get it open and inside the treasure that was there is gone. Or it's full of extra creatures and monsters that weren't there based on what we rolled on. Again, simple ways of doing things. And again, guys, very simple and straightforward. I know this video might have been, I don't know how long this video actually is, but I don't know if it seemed long or not. But this is me taking my time, going over some of those processes and explaining things. But really, it doesn't take long. It only takes a minute to come up with some of this stuff. And then you implement it. The longest part will be if you're doing solo generation stuff, or if you're using blank maps. You know, there's nothing attached to it. There's no wandering monsters. There's no theme outside of what's drawn, which can also inform how you're going to populate things. But yeah, like when we talked about where is it? I think it was in here. When we talked about here, this also does talk about like stocking the dungeon with treasure and stuff like that. Without a monster, with a monster, all that stuff. It's all in here. So that's pretty damn handy in my opinion. So yeah, guys, that's basically the video. We talked about how we use a simple D6 for things. We talked about some Augury dices and Augury tables that we have. One includes D6 and one is just a different bunch of dice which do answer your questions quite easily. The other one was looking at a dungeon, how we're going to solo play it. How do we decide what rooms we go into? I just opened that page straight away perfectly. Again, we're going to roll a dice according to the many rooms we're in. But yeah, like again, that's just us going through this quickly, having a quick look at how we can play within an area. So we have our solo generation, solo stocking, how to play an adventure, go along with your simple dices, stocking stuff again with your cards. It's all in here. So yeah, that's it, guys. If you like this video, please leave a comment down below. You can like, comment, subscribe. Again, that helps the channel massively. And yeah, I hope you found this somewhat useful. But yeah, that's it really. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you, and goodbye.